right, here we go, people. This is the sweat. Yeah, she's in a sweater. She just got ready like 5 minutes ago. Everything's good.
That's not true. I've been ready all day.
We're in this thing together, though. We're going to bring the bad influence and moral destruction. You just bring the fantasy questions, and our analysts are here to lend a hand as well.
What does moral destruction look like? Stay tuned. We've got hoops and hockey on the rundown, but we're talking football all show long, and that includes right now with DK Live's Reed Fowler and his best friend, Jeff Ulrich, and the A-Train, Adam Mancuda of Phantom Sports, who also hosts the All Out Blitz, which you can find on Phantom Sports on NFL Sundays.
Time for some NFL spin move, guys, where we put a fantasy spin on some of the league's top stories, starting with the Cowboys, who tonight shipped off a first-round pick to Oakland for wide receiver Amari Cooper. Reed, what's this change of scenery going to do for Cooper's fantasy value and possibly the value of others on this team, like, his quarterback and Zeke maybe?
Yeah, I think when you take a look at it from just face value on fantasy-wise, like it gives him probably a boost in the trade market, right? Like for trading in fantasy, I think right now we've seen his production. Look, he's 24 years old, back-to-back seasons of 1,000 yards before these last two. And so he's a talented receiver. He can get separation from the quarterbacks. We've seen it so far, and Dallas has no one of that ilk on their team right now. But we've also seen this guy drop a lot of passes. And if you look at the quarterbacks that are throwing it to him in Dak Prescott and Derek Carr, their passer ratings, their completion percentage, their touchdown percentage, all very similar to what they've been doing so far this year. So it's not a step up. He's not going to one of these premier quarterbacks or premier offenses, right? Jason Garrett has been wailing. He's been on the hot seat for a few weeks now. So obviously it's going to open up a little bit in the short term for Ezekiel Elliott. He might not see 10 in the box. He might only see 9, but it doesn't necessarily move it too much for Amari. I would try and trade him right now if you can, because his value is never going to be higher.
What do you think here, Jeff? Because Reed made a good point. I mean, it's not like his quarterback play is going to be any better.
I completely disagree with that. I'll take Dak Prescott over Derek Carr 100 times out of 100, but it really comes down to offensive philosophies. If the Cowboys are willing to make a change, spread things out a little bit more, give Dak more free reign, and just move to a more pass-heavy offense, this could be a great spot for Amari Cooper. Dak Prescott, we saw in his rookie season, we saw him run the spread in college. He's fully capable of doing that. The problem is Jason Garrett will not do it. I have no faith that they're going to do that. I have no faith that this is going to happen, and I have no faith this is going to be a good spot for Amari Cooper. We saw it with Dez Bryant last year. He had low output. He was a touchdown-dependent play. I think Amari Cooper is going to be the same thing. If we do see a switch in philosophy, absolutely, this could be a great spot. I think Dak Prescott has the ability to turn Amari Cooper into a good fantasy player. But, short term, wait and see.
Yeah, okay. So that said, Adam, Jeff's not a huge fan, doesn't think it's a great move for Amari Cooper. What do you think? Does his fantasy value increase here?
I just hate to get in between these two best friends here on this panel. So, I'm kind of like the third wheel, so I feel kind of left out. No, I actually think that this really does nothing for me in terms of Amari Cooper's value. I think I'd actually rather have Derek Carr as the quarterback. We've seen time and time again how Dak Prescott is just not an accurate quarterback. I think the biggest winners here are Ezekiel Elliott, Jared Cook, and Jordy Nelson potentially. And the reason why is that Amari Cooper, those targets he was getting, now have to be dispersed. I don't think they're going to Martavis Bryant, who any day now will probably be suspended again. So for me, it's Nelson and Cook who are going to benefit from an Oakland standpoint, especially since they play from behind almost all the time. Then I think it also frees up Ezekiel Elliott a little bit, to Reed's point, that they won't have 10 in the box. So they'll have to cover Cooper despite the fact that he's dropped a bunch of passes. So for me, yeah, it's a little stock up for Dak, but I wouldn't go overboard for anyone in this trade market. And to Reed's point, I think the excitement of Cooper being on a new team, that might spark interest in the trade market. But for me, it really doesn't do much.
Yeah, this dude's been boomer bust all season, as you guys know. 6 games, he's had 2 with over 24 fantasy points. The other 4 games, less than 4 points.
All right, let's move on to Saddle, Jacksonville, Florida. Blake Bortles was benched for Cody Kessler.
Yeah, he was.
What? Yeah, in the third quarter of yesterday's game against the Texans. But let's not forget the Jaguars were the NFL's Week 2 champions after beating the Patriots.
I do remember that.
What a time to be alive. However, since then, they've lost 4 of 5. Now they take their talents to London to face the Eagles, but he's been across the pond, 3-1 there with 8 touchdowns against just 2 picks.
So he's pretty good there.
So what kind of a bounce-back game do you expect from the boat, Jeff?
Well, I like you, Jessie. Just no holding back punches. Just twist the knife in as far as you can on it.
Oh, it feels so good, Jeff. It feels good.
It feels good to be bad. Continue,
What's going
Jeff.
on here?
I don't think there's going to be a bounce back. I mean, this Jacksonville team is in complete disarray. I just got finished reading an article. The defense was, getting in fights basically in the locker room after. Jalen Ramsey is basically, running his mouth off a little bit. This just looks bad. I mean, I think that Jacksonville's going to go across the pond, try and run a really conservative game plan, hide Blake Bortles as best they can. I just don't think it's going to work against Philadelphia. He's getting their offense back on track, and is the type of team who's benefited from this more wide open, offense nature of the NFL this year. So, no, I don't think there'll be a Blake Bortles bounce back. I think they're going to try and hide him, and I think they're just going to lose to the Eagles.
Reed, you got people fighting in the locker room. You got people fighting in the stands. You got the boat being benched. Do you think he's going to have a bounce-back game? Doug Marrone did say earlier he's going to be starting.
Yeah, but what does that mean? He's going to play one snap, and Kessler looked better than him anyway when he came in. And Marrone said it after he needed to spark something at this team. But I agree with Jeff. Like, the numbers for Blake Bortles and the Jaguars across the pond in London is pretty good when you look at it at face value. But this team is spiraling. Defense that really had a lot of confidence. And Emerson and I were talking about it earlier this past weekend, saying that these guys had a ton of sacks last year. They were pressuring the quarterback. They're not doing that this year, and so they can't stop anyone. And obviously Blake Bortles can't bring you back. You can't be throwing 60 times, 50 times, because you can't hide Blake Bortles by throwing it 50 times when you got to come back. I think Jeff's right. They're going to be more conservative. They're going to run the ball more. You do really pass on Philadelphia. That's what you do, but you don't pass with Blake Bortles. So I mean, the bounce back might be, 1 pick instead of 4. So I guess in that case, maybe, because he's only going to be throwing, I think, 20, 25 times.
Adam, he's consistently been good in London. I mean, a little bit of tea. You think he's just going to bounce back this week?
Give this guy some credit.
No, absolutely not. I think they'll probably leave him overseas and take the starter back without him, because at this point, he's useless to that team. I think at this point, you got to remember something. With the historical games in London, he had guys like Allen Robinson on his team, or even Allen Hurns in the year he had double-digit touchdown receptions. He just doesn't have that talent around him right now. Remember, he also had Fournette for some of those games. So, for me, he's not going to be there. They're going to want to ride Carlos Hyde as much as they possibly can. He should be active this week for the first time since they made the trade for him. So I just don't think he's going to be a long-term answer for the Jaguars or for any owner this week. And the Eagles are pretty good against, opposing quarterbacks that really can't throw the ball. So to me, I just don't see it. I wouldn't be shocked if they're struggling at halftime. They pull the plug again and go to Kessler and then move on from there. I mean, also wouldn't shock me if midweek this week, someone's out there on the trade market. Maybe it's Teddy Bridgewater that they call up and give a pick to the Saints for him and see what they can do, because they are in a position to win. The other thing you got to remember to what Reed said also was Jalen Ramsey went off yesterday. He basically said everyone on the defense doesn't want Blake Bortles being the quarterback. So I think one more bad performance in that locker room just shatters. And that's just going to be bad news for everybody there. So I don't expect anything from Bortles. One thing to note,
sorry to interrupt, Adam. One thing to note, too, I mean, 2 years ago, they took Fournette at number 4, and they passed up on Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes, 2 quarterbacks.
Dude, they passed up on Lamar Jackson this past season. Like, they passed up on a lot of guys. Instead,
right. So, and look at Fournette and what he's done in the past, right? I mean, he's obviously an injury risk. And, again, this might be seeing Saquon Barkley, same idea. And don't want to get down in this rabbit hole too much, but that's what happens when you take these guys high, like these running backs. Quarterback is a huge point, and those two guys were obviously in the league.
The Jags are addicted. They're addicted to
Bortles. I think the biggest issue here, and I'm sorry to cut you guys both off, is when you get to within one game and one quarter really of a Super Bowl, they weren't going to draft a quarterback and undermine them this year. So I think that was the problem. I think it was last year when they took Fournette was the bigger issue, where they should have went for a quarterback.
Yeah, man. Then they just cut Jamal Charles today. I mean, everything's just...
Emerson has no personal stake in this, as we know.
It's off the rails. Let's move on here on a positive note. Jeff's man crush, Patrick Mahomes, set an NFL record last night with his 22nd touchdown in his first 8 career games, breaking Kurt Warner's record of 21-8. KC will host the Broncos on Sunday, guys. Denver held Patty Mayonnaise to 1 score in Week 4. We feeling more fireworks inside Arrowhead for him? Talking multiple touchdowns here, Adam.
Absolutely. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is having such a great season, 6 straight games with over 300 yards. And since they played that game against the Chiefs, I mean, that Denver secondary's got lit up by pretty much everybody, and including the Jets, right? They gave up a bunch of huge plays to Sam Darnold in that team. So for me, at home in Arrowhead, Case Keenum's going to be on a short leash. You don't know which receivers are going to be actually active for Denver. Maybe they'll trade one of these guys. But I don't think their offense is going to be on the field too much. I won't think they'll be able to run the ball against Kansas City. I see him going for 3 or 4 touchdowns this week, make up for that down game he had in Mile High, despite them obviously coming out with the win.
Jeff, you think this dude just keeps rolling?
Are you asking me if you think the Denver Broncos are going to stop Patrick Mahomes?
I thought he was on mute.
You are ridiculous, Emerson.
I don't think the Denver Broncos are going to stop Patrick Mahomes.
I said, do you think this guy keeps rolling? Do you think Patrick Mahomes just stays on fire here, Jeff?
Look, I mean, I'll say this. The Broncos have probably stood up the best to the Chiefs offense out of anyone they faced. You have to take that in context, though. It was at home. It was at Mile High. They also allowed Mahomes to score 2 touchdowns late in the game, basically like it was nothing. So I think it was actually a bit of a revenge spot for the Chiefs because they're like the only team, the Broncos are like the only team they didn't blow out and they're division rivals. So, yeah, I expect multiple touchdowns from Patrick Mahomes this week.
Hi, Reed. Do you expect multiple touchdowns from Patrick Mahomes? Do you expect him to keep playing great football?
Listen, Emerson.
He's a little testy with the Jacksonville question. I get it. I do. The thing about Denver, though, I will say this. Denver is only given up multiple touchdowns in 2 games, but might be a misnomer, right? You really run on Denver in terms of they've only given up multiple touchdown games, 2 quarterbacks. You really run on Denver. That's what you do. And so it's potentially, if you're looking at the stats of this, it could be a red herring in that sense. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, he is 8.8% TD rate. That's the highest in the league so far. So yeah.
All right, well, that's going to do it, guys.
See you, Jeff.
Yeah, we got a hockey chit chat with
Duval.
Neil and Sean after this. Jeff, I love you. All right, bye, guys.
I'm Brendan Glasheen here with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. Okay, we all know the Giants are god-awful. They've lost 3 straight. They have one of the league's least productive offenses. But on paper, they're not short on personnel. So a matchup with the putrid Falcons defense is just what the G-Men needs, right? The offense. Atlanta allows the 2nd most DraftKings points per game to running backs, 7th most DK points per game to wide receivers this season. As bad as Eli Manning can be, Saquon Barkley, Odell Beckham Jr., they have to be considered. Let's start with Barkley. He is the most expensive on the slate, $18,000 as a captain, $12,000 at flex. He has at least 22 DK points in each of his first 6 games as a rookie. This is by far the best matchup this season for him. And for OBJ, 4th on the slate in price, same deal. Great matchup. He's eclipsed 9 targets or more in every game. You should expect even more volume tonight. I'm not saying ignore the Atlanta defense, or offense rather, Ryan, Julio, Coleman, all good plays there on that end. But the Falcons are just so bad defensively that you can't not play the Giants' weapons in showdown mode tonight.
All right, let's throw this thing on ice.
Yes, I could use a cocktail.
Don't mean literally. I don't mean literally.
Okay.
Say hello to our NHL panel, Neil Parker of RotoWire and Sean Newsham of the Action Network. And if you didn't know by now, the Action Network app is available on iPhone and Androids. Don't tell Matt LaMarca.
Let's see. Neil, that's a Cowboys hat. How do you feel, first off, about the trade today? You guys getting Cooper, sending off a first-round pick for him, though? Woo. How do you feel, bud?
Still a pretty young receiver, right? So, I mean, Calvin Ridley's only a couple months younger, and so Cooper comes in. He's got some experience, and maybe we can kickstart this offense in a weak division and make a playoff run here. And also, I mean, it gives an extra couple months for him to develop chemistry with Dak, and maybe it's a better 2019 for the Cowboys. The defense looks good, so maybe the offense just needs to catch up.
All right, Neil is a fan. Now let's get to the icy game of hockey here, boys. We're giving you 2 of the higher-priced options at each position. You tell us which is better. Sean, at center, Nathan McKinnon, $8,100 at Philly, or Evgeny Kuznetsov at Vancouver. He's $7,200.
For me, it's actually really close. Both of these are probably the 2 best center options on the slate, but I'm going to prefer Nathan McKinnon. His shots plus blocks is in the 99th percentile over the long term, and he is the #1 shot prediction metric guy in the slate tonight at Fantasy Labs, which is one of the highest metrics that we found to produce DraftKings stats. So for me, Nathan McKinnon is the clear favorite in this matchup.
Do you feel the same way here, Neil?
Well, I mean, it's tough for me to go against a fellow Nova Scotian boy, Nathan McKinnon, but give me the savings that Evgeny Kuznetsov offers. The Canucks are allowing the 5th most high-danger scoring chances per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. Kuznetsov's already racked up 4 goals, 8 assists, and 4 multi-point showings, and that's what you're really trying to chase at that price range. Additionally, the big thing for me that's encouraging about Kuznetsov is that his shots per 60 minutes is up to a career high 9.82. So I love Nathan McKinnon, but you can get a little savings there with Kuznetsov, and both, like you mentioned, are probably the top 2 center plays in this player pool.
Okay. All right, guys, let's take a look at the wings. We're going to skip Ovechkin, who's $1,200 more than any other winger. But let's take a look at his teammate TJ Oshie, $6,600 at Vancouver, or Vladimir Tarasenko, $6,700 at Winnipeg. What do you think, Neil?
Yeah, I'm going sticking with the Russians and going with Tarasenko again. He registered 27 shots through his first 4 games this season, but he's only been held to 6 in the past 3 outings. He's also got just 2 goals and 6.1 shooting percentage for the campaign. So I think there's definitely some positive regression ahead in the short term for Tarasenko, longstanding proven goal scorer and point producer. Also, I mean, while the Jets are definitely a Stanley Cup contender, they haven't exactly been the defensive juggernaut thus far. They've allowed 11.04 high danger scoring chances per 60 minutes at 5-on-5 this season. It's also worth noting that they have the 4th best save percentage while shorthanded this season. So I think there could be some negative regression ahead for their penalty kill, and that's where Tarasenko often does his best work. So I'm going with Tarasenko.
Sean, you want to save $100 and go with Oshie?
No, I'm actually going to stick with Neil here and go with Tarasenko. As Neil alluded to, he started off the season firing shots, but in the meantime, in the last 3 games, he's only mustered up 6 shots. However, he's on a 4-game assist streak, which sort of has offset that a little bit. You've never really seen Tarasenko at a $6,700 price tag. He's sort of reduced from what you would normally see. You see him usually as a high 7 to 8K type of player. And over the course of the last 5 years or so, he's been one of the highest volume shooters in the league and one of the most prolific goal scorers. So I think we're seeing him at a reduced ownership and reduced price points than what we'll see from him over the long run. So I sort of expect him to go and sort of have a little bit of positive progression back towards the mean at some point, and I expect it to start tonight.
All right, well, now I want you both to talk defense to me. Again, skipping a top price capital, John Carlson, $1,300 more than any other D-man. So, Sean, would you go Shane Gostisbehere, $5,700 against Colorado, or Alexander Edler against Washington? He's $5,600.
Yeah, for me, it's not really much of a question. I think Alexander Edler is actually the best play on the slate at any position. What we've seen out of Edler is he's blocking shots at an elite level. He's averaging about 7 peripheral points, which are blocks plus shots per game, which is 3.5 DraftKings points. So basically, each and every game, Edler is starting with a goal just off the bat, just because of what he's doing. He's a nice shot producer as well. He's in the 84th percentile in shots as well as being the top block producer in the entire league. So you have a guy that plays top power play, plays about 25 plus minutes per night for Vancouver in a matchup against Washington that does give up some shots. Plus you have guys like Alexander Ovechkin who like to take a lot of shots, who should match up against Edler. Just makes Edler the best player on the entire slate.
But Neil, for $100 more, you get Gostisbehere, dude.
Yeah, exactly. You get all that more upside too, right? So I definitely agree with the with everything Sean said about, and that's about floor production, right? So I don't disagree with anything he said. I mean, 38 block shots already through 8 games is a great starting point. Makes Edler a really nice floor play. Gostisbehere's definitely got the higher ceiling though. Since entering the league, his 2.02 points per 60 minutes ranks third behind just Brent Burns and Erik Karlsson. So, he's registered just a single assist through his past 4 games. So I really like Gostisbehere's chances to have a big game and outproduce his price point. And again, I agree with Sean in that nice floor that Alexander Edler can provide. But if I'm chasing upside and when I'm spending up at defense, that's typically what I'm going to do, especially in a GPP play. I'm going with Gostisbehere. Swayze, not Alexander Edler for the upside.
All right, finally, let's go goalie, guys. Neil, Jets goaltender Connor Hellebuck at $8,400 at home versus St. Louis, or Caps backstop Braden Holtby, $8,200 at Vancouver.
Yeah, typically I'm going to look to get any savings I can in net. So Holtby is probably going to be the play for me. He's cheaper. Canucks are generating a measly 9.15 high danger scoring chances per 60 minutes this season. And Washington's allowing a lot of shot attempts, 59.21 shots per hour. Holtby's faced at least 25 shots in each of his first 5 full games of the season. So he's going to get some work, and hopefully he gets a lot of easy saves to boost up his point production. And yeah, I'll take the savings and go with Holtby. Washington's a much better team than the Canucks.
Are you going to agree here, Sean?
I think Neil made some really good points with Holtby. However, I sort of want to stick to home goaltenders. I generally try to stay with home goaltenders, although I do like to make savings as much as possible in net. So for me, I would sort of stick with Hellebuck tonight. But I also think another person that makes a decent amount of sense is Peter Mrazek for Carolina. You get some savings, and Carolina ends up being the biggest favorite on the slate per Vegas. So I think if you want to go a little bit different way than those two, you can even save a little bit of salary with Mrazek.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, well, we got you two on the same page before we get you out of here. Let's go slate it per pick. Sean, who is your lock of the night?
Well, I probably would have went with Alexander Edler, but we've already talked about him, so I'll give you another one.
Okay.
Dougie Hamilton for Carolina. I just talked about they have the highest implied total of the slate today per Vegas, and Dougie Hamilton is a massive shot producer. One thing we know about Hamilton is that he fires shots at a fantastic rate. He's in the 99th percentile in shots for defensemen over the last year. And over his career, the biggest knock on him has been his defensive work, which isn't even a true statement, but his offensive work has always been there. He fires the puck on the power play. He's getting a little bit more minutes than what you've seen from him. So Dougie Hamilton's my lock of the slate.
Neil, who should people plug and play in their lineup?
I'm sticking with the Hurricanes too. Glad to see Sean's on board there, but I'm going with Teuvo Teravainen. So he's unlikely to stuff the goals column, but he's registered a tally, 6 helpers, 18 shots through his past 6 games. Well, that gives him a 5.6 shooting percentage. That's pretty low. But he's also attempting 16.9 shots per 60 minutes. So everything's working in his favor tonight. The Red Wings are a really soft matchup. Detroit's allowing a league-high 3.68 goals per 60 minutes at 5-on-5-2, and he's locked in with Sebastian Aho, one of the best up-and-coming players, and those Finns are lighting it up.
All right, thanks for the puck talk, guys. We got more NFL on the way when the sweat returns.
DraftKings and WWE 2K19 have partnered to bring you 3 free Monday Night Showdown contests starting October 8th. But fun doesn't stop there. Now's your chance to battle against WWE's best while taking a shot at winning $1 million in the WWE 2K19 $1 Million Challenge. Here's how it works. Fire up your Xbox One or PS4 and play the $1 Million Tower. Then win the $1 Million Dominance achievement by beating 15 consecutive opponents, including a final showdown with AJ Styles to climb the ladder to the next phase. Head over to WWE.2K.com/$1 Million Challenge to register and submit a link to your video explaining why you will beat AJ Styles in WWE 2K19. Be sure to show off the victory screen and gamer name in your video. You get one shot at entering, so make it count if you want to be one of the 4 finalists who will compete in a single elimination tournament during WrestleMania 35 weekend in New York City. If you're the last one to survive, you'll square off against AJ Styles himself in a one-on-one match in WWE 2K19. And if you win the game against the champ, you'll take home $1 million. But you got to play to win. So pick up WWE 2K19, available in stores October 9th.
Well, welcome back to the Sweat, everyone, where if it looks like we're half-assing things today, it might be because we are.
Speak for yourself. He's just kidding. Anyway, Reed, Jeff, and Adam are back. Let's look ahead to see which players coming off big Week 7 performances could see some regression in Week 8. Also known as an NFL hangover.
And speaking of hangover, Reed, famous Jameis, goes for more than 26 points in an overtime win in Cleveland. He and the Bucs head to Cincy now to face the Bengals team that got absolutely torched by Mahomes, Jeff. You feeling a third straight game with 25-plus fantasy points for Carl Crab Legs here, Reed?
Where's the nickname for Adam? The A-Train, A-game.
He's A-Train,
yeah,
bro.
don't leave him out. Yeah, I think
I'm
he's
not part of this best friends group here. Sorry.
Yes, you are.
No, you will be. Don't worry about it. Yeah, I think he does. I think he goes for, and it's just because of volume too, right? You look at what Kansas City is able to do. They put you in negative game scripts in real football, right, where you have to be passing. And so for fantasy football, we reap the benefits from the quarterback skill position and so on and so forth. And if you look at the last attempts from Dalton, from Brady, and your boy Bortles, all high attempts. Bortles threw it 61 times. Again, you have to be efficient with those throws. And Jameis is a guy who isn't efficient down the field, but is throwing it a ton and is able to get those points even with throwing, multiple interceptions. So I do think he goes for 25 here. I don't think it's out of the question because they're going to have to be passing. They're going to be coming from behind. So, yeah, absolutely.
Jeff, does Jameis Winston keep rolling to a third straight game of 25-plus fantasy points?
No.
Fair enough. Adam?
Yeah.
No, look.
Yeah.
No, let Jeff talk.
I want to say something now.
Go
I changed
ahead.
my mind. Look, the Bengals are coming off an embarrassing loss. We all know that. But this is like the ultimate bounce back spot. This is what happens. I mean, the Bengals are still a pretty solid team. I know they've allowed some big games, but still got Geno Atkins back. Still got a decent secondary. Will Jackson's back there. Jameis Winston can turn the ball over a lot. I would take the under if I had to. There's a possibility of a shootout, but I would take the under personally.
Kaufman was right about you, man. You really are just the worst.
What?
Just
Wow.
kidding. We
No, you're
love
not,
you.
Jeff. I don't even think that of you, and you're my best friend.
We love you. All right, let's go to our third wheel here. Adam.
Yeah, I think he goes over. Look, I think that the Bucs just play terrible defense. So to Reed's point, they're going to be playing from behind for much of the afternoon. And when you do that, he's going to throw the ball 45, 50 times, and he's naturally going to pick up yards, especially if they're behind, which they probably will be against the Bengals. He's going to be playing garbage time for probably the majority of the third and fourth quarter. So he'll rack up well over 300 yards. He'll probably throw a couple of touchdowns. I think it was really rare that yesterday he didn't throw a passing touchdown. He obviously had the rushing touchdown. But, to me, he's going to go well over 25 points because they'll just be playing from behind. He's still got Mike Evans. They got a couple of other weapons with O.J. Howard and Pete Barber. Now Ronald Jones seems to be getting in the mix. So to me, I think he goes over. He's not a good quarterback. He's not accurate. But unlike Dak Prescott, who could, who his teams are playing from ahead a lot of some of the time, they're not going to be playing from ahead in this one or many games moving forward. So I'll take the over there.
Hey guys, now I'm going to talk. Everyone knows I'm better than Emerson. All right, Marlon Mack delivers nearly 35 DK fantasy points for the Colts in a beatdown of the Bills. And now Indy heads west to the Black Hole to take on the 1-5 Raiders.
Okay.
Gruden's crew is 27th in rush defense. Can Mack, at just 5,400, give his owners another 30-plus point game? Jeff.
Possibly. Obviously, the total we've said here is ridiculously high. You need a bunch of things to go right to go over 30, but it's in play. I mean, the Raiders' run defense is bottom 5 in the league, if not like bottom 3. So Marlon Mack's clearly the number one option on Indianapolis. He really just had to prove health, and he's done that. And look what happened. I mean, the Colts are one of the teams that have set up, as more of a spread offense. So they don't have teams just stacking the box against them. So Marlon Mack's going to be involved in the pass game. He's going up against a terrible opponent. The Colts are a better team, I think, than people realize. So, look, 30 points, like I said, it's a ridiculous total, but there's a possibility he goes over.
Adam, 30-plus. No, he's shaking his head no.
Nope.
The Colts are a better team than we thought? No, they're not. Not at all.
Oh.
Told him.
The only reason we were saying that is because they made Derek Anderson look like Derek Anderson yesterday. They also was no LaShawn McCoy on the field. There was literally no threat of moving the ball at all from the Bills all day yesterday. So for me, I don't think he goes over at all. I don't even think it comes close. He had 18 total points before yesterday. Yes, he's the best back they have. Yes, he's the most talented running back they have. And Naheem Hines is more of a receiving threat. To me, they're not going to have a 20, 30-point lead in this game because the Raiders, even without Amari Cooper, will still be able to move the ball. They have a couple weapons on that team. Doug Martin, I think, at this point, will obviously be taking over for Marshawn Lynch, and they still got Nelson and Cook. So I could see them throwing the ball a little bit more, relying a little less on Mack, and I just don't see him coming close to 30. That's a really lofty number, and I just don't see him getting there.
Hey, Reed.
Adam's not a Colts lover.
Tiebreaker.
No, he's not.
Reed, tiebreaker.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with Adam here. While Jeff does bring up some good points, Marlon Mack is someone that I'm really interested in. Look, he was injured for most, obviously, the beginning of the season, and obviously comes in and sees the majority of the snaps. But that's just it. He's only the majority of the snaps in this three-headed monster, if you want to call it that, is 55%. To get 30 points, that you have to be highly efficient. Now, he was compared to an extent now, to a degree, to Todd Gurley, right, in terms of what he can do. He is not Todd Gurley. Let's get one thing straight. He is not Todd Gurley, but that's the kind of efficiency that you need to get 30 DK fantasy points in back-to-back games. Oakland does give up 28 DK fantasy points per game, so it isn't out of the realm. I just think in terms of the efficiency, it's just not going to be there.
Adam, you're
He
leading
thinks
off.
Marlon Mack is Todd Gurley. Did you hear that?
Yeah, that was kind of like bizarre. What
Emerson would say that in the next show.
why would you like Mack over Gurley?
Yeah,
Next question.
All right,
Next
sounds
question,
good, producer
please.
Reed. Baltimore wide receiver John Brown scored what many thought would be the tying touchdown in the Ravens-Saints battle on Sunday, only to see Justin Tucker miss the first extra point of his career.
Wow.
Brown, he's $5,900. Jesse still put up 29 DK fantasy points. Does he have another one of these games in him this week at Carolina, Adam?
No, I don't think so. I think the matchup was right here for Brown to have a big game. I thought Crabtree would probably be the one to have the big game here against New Orleans, but it seemed to me they keyed on him to a degree. So for me, look, John Brown had 14.6 points over the two previous games, so for him to go 29 was kind of surprising. He's really a boom or bust player. I would never touch him in DFS unless he was probably going up against someone like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers or something like that. But for me, I'd stay away from him. I don't see him going to that level. And I just think the Carolina Panthers will do a better job of covering him, especially on the deep ball, than we saw yesterday from what the Saints did.
Reed, you going to touch John Brown in DFS this week at Carolina?
I'll take a look. I think in GPPs, he's not a bad play, and that's the reason why, right? Boomer bust is sort of what you want in DFS GPP. So I will take a look at that. Cash game, probably not. But if you look at that last game, John Brown, his air yards are fantastic. Over the last 7 weeks, he's number 3 in all receivers, running backs, tight ends. So that's really good in terms of air yards that he's getting. But target share-wise, not that much. You saw a bunch at the beginning of the season. You saw 18% to Crabtree's 22%. So that's a little tough in terms of getting that sustainable production. But what he does get right are those long passes. He does have one more red zone attempt or target, than Crabtree. But Crabtree will, I think, eventually be the red zone target. We saw that in Oakland with Crabtree. But John Brown's a fantastic player. I really like him. I just don't think he gets the target share right now to get that, or in this game, to get that play production. So no, under.
GPP or cash game here for John Brown this week, Jeff?
Probably neither for me, to be honest. So you're kind of buying at the peak here. I'll just pile on a little bit. I mean, he's played well. He's working well, Joe Flacco, but they're really inefficient. He gets like 10 targets and makes 4 catches. And then last week he caught 7 of 7 targets. We haven't really seen that kind of efficiency from him in the past. So it's really not the most terrible matchup. The Panthers secondary is probably their weakest point, but at the same time, I think I'd take the under here. And again, you're buying it like an inflated price, so I'm not going to use him this week, I don't think.
All right, guys. Time to reward your 10 minutes of work with a 10-minute break.
It'd be like closer to 20 minutes, actually.
Yeah, we're going to talk Monday Night Showdown picks with you coming up. But first, we're price checking in the NBA right after this.
What's up, everybody? I'm Brendan Glasheen for DK Live. This is Who'd I Miss On with Adam Levitan. Check him out on DK Live on the DraftKings Playbook after we recap Levy's subpar picks in Week 6. You were high on Jets receiver Jermaine Kearse. His price tag was a season high $4,100. Lays an egg, 0 catches, 2 targets. He had 9 catches last week. So what happened here?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Jermaine Kearse's usage was fine. Played on almost all the snaps, was in the slot just as we expected, had the good matchup against the Vikings. Sam Darnold threw 42 times, but somehow, even with Terrell Pryor out, even with Quincy Enunwa out, he only targeted Jermaine Kearse twice. So I think this is just kind of the things that happen sometimes when we invest in a mediocre to below average receiver with a rookie quarterback facing a, generally speaking, pretty good defense. This is kind of the risk that we take. I did not think in a million years he'd get 0 points. But I think the people that are flipping out and saying, this was the worst play ever, I think that's mistaken. I think he was still fine.
Let's go to Ezekiel Elliott. He ran the ball 15 times, just 33 yards on the ground. He reeled in 2 of 6 receiving targets, 6.2 DK points overall. You were high on Zeke as well, so how did the Redskins defense keep him from having a monster day?
Yeah, I thought Zeke was a good play. By the time that the week went on and we had Nick Chubb available to us, we had Kerryon Johnson to us by a trade, by an injury to Theo Riddick, then I didn't think that Zeke was as strong, but still in a vacuum, I thought he was a really good play. And I think what we have to realize is that this Dallas offense is bad. No matter what they showed in that Jaguars game, then they go on the road. In the division, there was always a chance that with this offensive line is mediocre. The pass game weapons are awful. Dak is up and down. It's not a lock, or it's not even a good bet that the Cowboys offense will play well on a week-to-week basis. And when they don't, Zeke is really going to struggle. So in hindsight, probably Zeke was not as strong as I thought.
Same game, different team and position. Jordan Reed, he was targeted just 4 times, 2 grabs, 43 yards. Overall, a disappointing season for the Redskins tight end. Why were you high on Reed in this game, and then what went wrong?
Yeah, I thought David Njoku was the clear-cut best play for cash, highest equity play, but I thought for tournaments, Jordan Reed made a lot of sense once we knew that Paul Richardson wasn't going to play, Chris Thompson wasn't going to play, Jamison Crowder wasn't going to play. So even though it wasn't a great matchup against Dallas, who has a far better defense than people realize, still thought that Jordan Reed was by far the best pass game option for the Redskins. The problem is they're winning by hiding Alex Smith, by playing defense, by running the football with Adrian Peterson, and you get these really low volume, low aggression levels from the pass game. So to that end, even though Jordan Reed is healthy, it's just not the right environment.
With all those injuries, they still found a way to win. All right, that's it for the Week 7 edition of Who'd I'd Miss On. Thanks, Levy. We appreciate it. You can find Levitan on DK Live and the DK Playbook. We'll catch you next Monday to recap his misses in Week 8.
Hey there, we're back, and if you need some running back help, we are here to help.
And by we, she means Pat Mayo, who's taking you on a wild waiver wire ride right meow.
Marlon Mack is still available in 60% of leagues. Wow. Which blows my mind. So he's number 1. Judge Ito is number 2. We'll see what his split share is like Monday night. Jalen Richard, number 3. Chris Ivory, number 4. I'm banking on Shady being out.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know for sure.
It looked like a really bad injury. That's why I was surprised to hear them talking about the head. Like, it looked like, a pretty bad ankle injury.
We got Mozart at number 5. Aaron Jones. People are sick of his nonsense.
Yeah.
He's at number 6. Duke Johnson, 7. Wendell Smallwood, Kenyon Barner, and Trenton Cannon. Cannons to the left of them. Cannons to the right.
You're going to grab him in deep format?
I don't mean, if Powell's out, they did. I mean, all they did was pass to him in the second half.
I know, and Corral has been, he's been nicked up for a couple weeks now. He's hardly practiced over the past couple weeks, and, he's really nothing exciting considering, look at his stat line. He's got some touchdowns.
I got Devonta Foreman at number 11, too. I'm just not sure when he's going to be back.
Yeah, I know.
They were all hyped for him to be back week 7. Well, week 7 has passed.
Yeah.
And he's not playing Thursday night,
I know. And Lamar Miller had a 100-yard game and a touchdown. The Jags really do suck.
The one name because the one injury we didn't talk about is the Marshawn Lynch out for at least 4 weeks. So I have Richard at number 3 because no way in hell I'm picking up Doug Martin.
Oh, I know. And I've had a couple people.
It's not happening.
A couple people ask me, like, Chris, you always talk about opportunity and volume. Can't ignore it. Doug Martin could get like 15, 20. No. Just like I just don't care about him. We've seen it before multiple times. At Tampa Bay, he had every opportunity, for carries and touches and didn't do anything with them. I do believe that Gruden will give him some touches.
Oh,
I'm sure he
will, and he sucks.
Yeah,
so
he's not going to be efficient.
We'll see what happens. He's been ranked in worst place every week this year, along with Mark Ingram. Mark Ingram had a real classic worst place game yesterday.
He did, yeah.
Because not only is he now sucking himself, he's taking away from Kamara.
I know.
So that's never fun.
It was positive to see Kamara get 17 carries, because last season he never had any games with over 12.
Yeah.
So that was at least positive to see him get back into that.
And he
range
got the goal line touchdown.
Ingram
just kept getting stuffed every time he touched the ball. He reeks.
Yeah, that was fair. Mack is very interesting. I'm surprised that he's owned in so many leagues. I understand that he was hurt, to start the year, and he's just frustrating. But that was kind of his coming out party. He played the most snaps he's ever played. He caught a few balls, found the end zone twice, I believe. The positive is that he can catch, right? Like, Andrew Luck is still throwing the football a ton.
That's the thing. He's going to remain on the field, where before it was just, hey, let's take Wilkins off, let's take Turbin off, Naheem Hines, you're going to be on the field. But this is the best game Mac's going to have all year. So let's pump the brake. Now he's startable.
Yeah, exactly. He's startable.
Let's not pretend like he's a running back one.
No, he's definitely not. But he's somebody that you can feel good about starting at least, and in the RB2 flex.
So the breakdown yesterday between their snaps. If you want to see the full snap shares, go to the description or go to dkplaybook.com. My waiver wire article is up there right now, or my Facebook page actually has the printout of all the snap shares that people want to kind of follow along. Two guys played 100% of the snaps yesterday.
Yeah.
Zeke played 100% of the snaps. Didn't do him any good.
No.
Christian McCaffrey played 100% of the snaps. Didn't do him any good.
Nah, he didn't do a whole lot. That was a tough matchup against the Eagles, but I was kind of in on McCaffrey last week or this past week. The Eagles have struggled against running backs who can catch. I mean, obviously Barkley is a beast, but he had 9 grabs. A couple weeks ago, the Titans' backs combined for 11 catches.
The thing is, they're committed to throwing to Barkley regardless. With Zeke, it seems like one week they want to throw to him, the next week they're like, you can't catch. We're not going to throw to you anymore.
The Zeke thing was surprising. He's had monster games against Washington before, and I'm not surprised to hear he played 100% of the snaps. Like him and McCaffrey and Connor, who was on a bye, they're always at the top in the snap count. The percentages are like over 90%, the average. So they're both going to continue to get play. But McCaffrey, before we came on, we talked about this, getting a lot of offers for McCaffrey. And as a McCaffrey owner, I'm a little bit frustrated myself.
You said you almost swapped him straight up for James White.
I almost swapped him. Yeah. And James White every week, like he's leading backs in targets now. He's basically a wide receiver 1 for his team. He's catching balls. And I need a wideout. So I'm like thinking about that. But I'm being patient with McCaffrey, especially this week. I expect another stinker against Baltimore. It's not a great matchup.
You can catch passes against Baltimore.
You can.
I mean, just don't run him. Throw him the ball 14 times.
And that's what's probably going to happen because they're a really hard team to run on. But the schedule gets really. He's going to have Atlanta, I think, twice. Atlanta twice or Tampa
once.
Twice?
It's Tampa twice, Atlanta once.
The Saints in there, week 15.
So here's where we go. We go Baltimore this week. That sucks.
Yeah.
They eventually have a bye in here somewhere too, I think. But
they
already had their bye week. That's right. So they go Tampa, Pittsburgh, Detroit.
Yep.
Three mo matchups.
Yep.
Seahawks after that, which is like a neutral matchup.
Yeah. It's not awful.
It's not awful. It's not great. It's
Yeah.
not awful.
Yeah.
Seattle's like kind of sneaky.
Yeah,
good.
their defense has been fine.
I think they're like 7th in DVOA.
Yeah.
Which is kind of creepy.
I know.
We have, after coming out of that, so the end of the season, we got the Bucks, the Browns, the Saints, the Falcons.
Alrighty, the NBA is giving us 9 games tonight, and we are giving you Nick Whalen of the Roto Wire, as well as our very own Greg Ehrenberg. Greg, I hope your grandma has the internet and she is watching right now at home.
That would be a no.
Yeah.
Okay, that's unfortunate.
You just said grandma and internet in the same sentence, so yeah, probably not.
Anyway, price check.
Yeah, that's what we're playing.
Let's play it.
So, will these players return value on their salary? Starting with the Greek Freak, $11,100 is the top price on the slate. Bucks are hosting the Knicks. Too steep or worth the cost, Greg?
Yeah, so I kind of think this is just a fair price for Giannis. But the issue I really have with him tonight is just the workload. If we look at his minutes this year, he's playing 33.5 minutes per game, which is a little bit down from 37 minutes last year. And the other thing also is there's a lot of blowout risk here. The Bucks are right now 11.5-point favorites over the Knicks. We don't know if the starters will come in the fourth quarter. And you look at the history of Budenholzer, who's the new coach for the Bucks. He generally doesn't like to play his starters a whole ton of minutes. I'm not to say that like Giannis isn't going to play at all, except he's never had a starter play more than 36 minutes per game on average. So for that reason, I'd rather go up to LeBron than Giannis for this slate.
Hey, Nick, do you agree? Are you worried about that workload?
I think that's fair. I mean, the Bucks, I watched the game on Friday. It was out of hand for most of the second half against Indiana. Ended up being a 17-point difference. And Giannis still got to 32 minutes in that game. I mean, it's still so early in the season that it's really hard to tell, how much we can read into certain stats. But he's the early season leader, I should say, in usage rate, using almost 40% of the Bucks' possessions right now. And again, we're only 2 games in, but he's up about 8% in that category over where he finished last year, hovering around 31%. But I do agree with what Greg said. I mean, there's certainly some blowout potential here. I mean, the Knicks have kind of shown two sides to their team thus far. I think they're going to have some trouble defending the paint. I really don't like Enes Kanter's chances of keeping Giannis away from the rim. And right now he's got 42 points in the paint already through just 2 games.
You okay, Jessie?
Yeah, are you?
Yeah. I know you get a little hot and bothered when Nick's on the show. That's all.
Oh, wow, that's funny, Emerson.
So here we go. Greg, you just mentioned LeBron James, the winless Lakers, Spurs, King James, $10,500. Is it a LeBron night?
Yeah, well, I could relate to Jessie. Same problems for me over here. It's very understandable. These are big issues on the sweat. That's how the show got its name. So like I said before, I really do prefer LeBron to Giannis tonight. I know that if we're looking at the Lakers matchup, it seems like it's not ideal against the Spurs. The Spurs have historically been one of the best defensive teams in the league. But if you look at their personnel this year, I just don't think it's a very good roster. They're getting a lot of respect from Vegas so far this year, but I just don't buy it. I don't think this is a playoff team this year. I think the matchup is much easier for LeBron than it appears on paper. And the Lakers are just playing at a ridiculous pace so far this year. We've seen from LeBron in the past when his teams struggle, sometimes they'll kind of put the team on his back and carry a higher usage rate in those kind of situations. So I think we really see a LeBron night, as you called it.
Nick, do you agree? Is it a LeBron night? Do the Lakers get their first win here?
You know, I think there's a good point to be made that the Spurs have kind of in some ways been, I don't like to use the word coasting off of reputation. I mean, it's certainly a reputation that they've earned. But I do think we're going to finally see some slippage this year. I mean, losing DeJounte Murray for the year is obviously going to impact them more defensively, I think, than it will offensively. It's going to take a while, you know, to really see where this defense ultimately settles in. And obviously with no Ingram, no Rajon Rondo, I think more the playmaking is going to end up falling on LeBron. But if there is something that does concern me right now, you know, again, we're early in the season, but you look at the pace. Lakers are playing at the fastest pace in the league through 2 games. And the Spurs, on the other hand, are dead last. And it's by a pretty good margin. 15 fewer possessions per 48. The Spurs are playing at compared to the Lakers. They're over 3 possessions per 48 behind the next lowest team. So I think the pace probably settles in somewhere in the middle. Obviously, the Lakers want to run. Obviously, the Spurs, you know, built around a plotting big man in LaMarcus Aldridge and a fairly plotting guard, if there is such a thing, in DeMar DeRozan, don't want to run. So to me, there's a little bit of concern with pace, but I'm never going to tell you to bet against LeBron James.
Okay.
All right, guys, Steph Curry is by far the highest priced guard on the board, north of $10K. Is he worth it as the Warriors host the Suns, Greg?
So here's how I feel about Curry. I also think this is a game with a ton of blowout risk. This is the game with the most blowout risk on the entire slate. 13.5-point favorites for the Warriors. We see this from them all the time at home. They're massive favorites, and a lot of times the games are over like at halftime. They'll be up by like 35 points. The third quarter, the Warriors tend to usually put teams away. So I wouldn't play Curry in a cash game. For a GPP, I think he makes sense, but I wouldn't play him by himself. I think you have to run it back with 1 or 2 Suns players in this one. So I think Curry paired with either like Ayton and or Booker makes sense as a start for a GPP lineup. But just as a standalone play, I don't really love Curry.
Nick, I saw you nodding. Do you agree?
I do. I mean, Curry's off to a great start, 30-plus points, 5+ threes, at least 6 assists in each of his first 3 games. And certainly there's an argument to be made that if this is a blowout, if the Warriors are up 25 after 3, Curry's probably a big reason for that. But the Warriors have started slow. You know, I mean, obviously they lost the other night. They played a close one in Utah. I think they're kind of due for an offensive breakout. I know Zach Lowe had a note earlier today that they're averaging about 50 fewer passes per game through their first 3 games than they did last season. I think that's something they're going to address. Klay Thompson hasn't shot it all that well. Curry, even by his standards, I think has missed more open looks than he'd like. And if there's a team that you're going to break out against offensively, I think it's the Phoenix Suns. So I'm a little bit too worried that this one's going to turn into a laugher in the second half.
Gentlemen, before you take off, please hit us with your slate-approved pick, your must-play, your must-start of the night. Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, so Lonzo Ball for me, starting at point guard with Rajon Rondo suspended.
Wow, interesting. Nick, what do you think, dude?
I had Lonzo on my list. I had Kuzma on my list, but I'm going with Bobby Portis, 6,600 against the Mavs team that right now, and again, for the 5th time, small sample size alert, they're the worst defensive team in the league. He's a guy who had a higher usage rate than Paul George last season. He gets his shots up.
Awesome.
All right, thanks, dudes. Our football guys return with their Monday night picks after we hear from Mike Francesa, who talked with Brendan Glasheen about tonight's Giants-Falcons game.
The desperate Giants at 1-5 are visiting the Falcons for Monday Night Football this evening. Mike, G-men have had 11 days to regroup since that brutal loss to the Eagles. How do you expect the Giants to come out and play tonight?
It's been a rough time. It's been a rough start. I think desperate is both teams because, let's be honest, Atlanta had enough talent this year to be a Super Bowl team. I think the Giants will be able to move the ball here because Atlanta doesn't pose the problems that a lot of teams do the Giants in that they're not going to kill them with the pass rush. And that's where you really destroy the Giants. Giants can make plays. If you give Eli time, as he's had in certain games, and they've been on the road, Houston, he picked them apart. Carolina, he put up 15 points in the last 7 minutes to take the lead before they get beat by a 63-yard field goal. So I see that kind of game here. I think it's a high-scoring game, and I think it's a game where the Giant offense, Barkley, Beckham will make big plays. I think Landon will make big plays, and you'll have probably a high-scoring game.
Multiple talking heads have thrown out the idea Giants should trade Eli to the Jaguars. I think it was Hasselbeck on ESPN earlier in the week.
Right.
Hey, reunite him with Tom Coughlin. Then the Giants can focus on the next quarterback. Too bad they don't have one. What do you make of that hypothetical?
I've thrown it out there all season, from our lips to Tom's ears. I hope it happens. I like Eli a lot. I like him personally. He's been someone who's been on my program for 15 years. I know him very well. I know his dad very well. I don't know Peyton very well. I know Eli very well. I know Archie very well. I've known Archie since he was a player. So I know the family. Eli deserves better than this. He's a gentleman. He's given the Giants anything they could ask. I think it'd be the best thing that could ever happen. Let the Giants move on and get a quarterback until they get their real quarterback, whoever he may be. Let them get someone who gives them a chance to exploit what they want to exploit in their new offensive weapons. Eli's got plenty left as long as you can protect him. He's completely immobile, but he can make any throw, and he's still great in a big game. I think that is something I have promoted forever. So I would not second it. I would third it. I would fourth it. I would love to see it happen. Heck, I might even call Tom and tell him, why don't you get Eli? And it's something I've talked about on the air for weeks.
Yeah, plus the Giants, if they don't win more games, they'll have a better draft pick to get that next
quarterback.
Too.
And you know what? Let them move on and let them experiment and
Sure.
let them put a little letter in or go get somebody else and try to be mobile and try and do some different things because they don't have a good offensive line. And on this line, Eli makes the line worse because he's immobile, and the line makes Eli much worse because they can't pass block and they can't run block. So you get no play action either. And let's be honest, Barkley has been sensational behind a line that stinks. If you put him behind a good line, he would be winning the Rookie of the Year by so much, it would be over already.
You are very fond of Eli, of course, and then there's Matt Ryan, who has an interesting career because he went to the Super Bowl against the Patriots. We all know the rest, blows the 28-3 lead. When it's all said and done, postseason included, who's going to have the better overall career?
Eli, because of the fact that only 5 guys have ever been 2-time Super Bowl MVP winning quarterbacks. The other 4 are legends. Then there's Eli, who to me belongs in the Hall of Fame because of what he's done, longevity, durability, and the fact that he was great in all his playoff games on the road in NFC championship games against top competition, against top quarterbacks. Look at the QBs he's beaten. His 2 wins are against the Pats and Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. I mean, he played great in the fourth quarter of both those games. Eli's always been a terrific postseason player. For Giant fans and some critics, he hasn't been in enough playoff games. It hasn't ended well there. He's not mobile. I think it'd be the best thing, but I think that Matt's been a good quarterback. But to me, quarterback's about winning, and Eli's been durable. He's been a leader, and he's also got 2 Super Bowl MVPs as a winning quarterback. And like I said, there's only 4 guys who join him with that. That puts him in very special company.
Real quick, does Matt Ryan ever win a Super Bowl?
He should have already won one, and if his coach had a brain in his head, he would have already won one because when the minute Julio Jones got that first down, that game was over if you don't try to make another play.
Yep.
That they lost that game was utterly criminal. The Pats won 2 Super Bowls that they had no right winning.
Jeff, Reed, Adam, welcome back. I hear the final football game of Week 7 is tonight, and we'd like to gather your thoughts on it.
That's right. It's a showdown contest.
Let's do it.
Falcons and Giants. So who's your captain's pick for this evening, Reed?
Yeah, I want to fit all the skill players I can in this game, and Saquon is probably the guy that everyone is going to go to. So I'm going to swerve off of him a little bit and go to Evan Ingram. He's going to allow me to get more of these guys in. Look, he's been out for the last 3 weeks with an injury, and it's hard to trust someone coming off of an injury, a long-term injury, to come back and produce fantasy value. But I think in terms of where he's at, he was close to playing last week, and now he's ready. He gets that extra day, obviously, with the Monday night game. And we've seen Eli Manning. He can't pass it far down the field. So Evan Ingram slots in there. He allows me to get in other guys like Julio, maybe like OBJ and some of these other guys into my lineup that I do want, maybe potentially fit in both of these quarterbacks. So Evan Ingram at a cheaper price for my captain's pick.
Adam, who are you going to captain?
I'm going to go with the best player on the field, and that's Saquon Barkley. I know I'm going to pay up for him. I know Reed mentioned it, and most people are going to do that. I'll talk about Ingram and some other guys to save on a little bit. But again, to Reed's point, Eli Manning doesn't have the time to throw it down the field. So that means the short dump off, which we saw last week, and I've seen all season long from Eli to Saquon. I think his reception numbers can probably approach double digits tonight, especially since they'll probably be playing from behind. I just think he's a lock here. The Falcons defense isn't that great, as we know. So to me, Barkley's the safest bet from a Giants perspective, and to me, he's the only real weapon that I am fully confident in week in and week out for the Giants, considering OBJ, we have no idea when that guy's going to lose it and propose to a kicking net. So to me, give me Barkley.
A mere $18,000. All right, Jeff, who are you going with?
Can I just say that DraftKings really missed out on an opportunity to make this whole captain's thing a Gilligan's Island theme and just call it the skipper's pick?
Yeah, dude, shoot. I'm all about it.
And the reason I bring up Gilligan's Island is what player on this slate kind of looks like Gilligan?
Eli Manning. Eli Manning. We all said it at the same time.
I know he's terrible, but guess what? The Falcons give up 28 DK points to the quarterback position. Each of the last 5 quarterbacks against Atlanta has thrown for 3 touchdown passes. You can save a lot of money by going Eli. You can still roster Saquon, who, you should probably get some exposure to, but I like it. I like it. He's cheaper. He's easy to fill in. And like I said, this is the matchup where you roster Eli. This is it. You don't have to roster him next week. You probably shouldn't have rostered him the first 5 weeks or whatever, but this is the matchup where you roster him. It is.
There's no week.
Yeah. We've got someone on YouTube saying ew to that idea.
I thought he was going Tevin Coleman for sure.
Yeah, me too. What's up with that? No love for Tevin.
You come back with Tevin Coleman. You still get Tevin Coleman in the lineup, Reed. That's a given, but...
Yeah, Reed, learn how to use the captain.
Eli respect.
Ew.
Who are you looking forward to value on this slate, Jeff?
Yeah, this is tough because this game is chock full of star players that you want to get in. I'm trying to find out who's active for the Giants, and we still don't have a certainty whether Russell Shepard is going to be active. But if he is, he's been acting as the third wide receiver, and he's actually gotten some targets when he's played. If he is out, Benny Fowler would fit into the third wide receiver role. They're very thin at that position. So look for either Benny Fowler if Russell Shepard is out. But if Russell Shepard is active, I think he's a good value.
What about you, Adam?
Yeah, I don't trust either of those guys because, as we just talked about, Eli doesn't throw the ball down the field. So unless they're going to literally stand on the line of scrimmage and wave like my son does playing peewee football, then he's not going to get the ball. So for me, Ito Smith, the running back for the Falcons, he's been the best running back on that roster this season. Touchdowns in 3 straight games. He's priced perfectly at $4,400. Remember, this is a very talented guy in college. His junior and senior years ran for over 1,400 yards and 13 touchdowns or more in each of those seasons. To me, he's been the better back than Tevin Coleman, who saved his season by a couple of touchdown receptions. I think the Falcons are going to move the ball on the Giants at will. They'll get into the red zone, and Ito Smith's had a very good success rate in the red zone. So give me Ito Smith tonight.
Adam, we got a couple people on YouTube who like the idea of, putting Smith in the captain spot.
Not a bad idea at all. I think that he's going to get those red zone looks. They haven't been giving Coleman those looks because he hasn't delivered. He's had plenty of opportunities this season with Freeman out to do it. He hasn't done it. So to me, Ito Smith's a really good pick for that captain spot, especially at that value.
Kevin's just waiting for prime time. Coming tonight.
Hey, maybe.
There it is. Maybe. He couldn't resist. There it is.
No, he really couldn't. But
Reed, couldn't do it.
Reed, who are you looking to for value, buddy?
Yeah, I like the Ito Smith call. I think Benny Fowler or something. Those guys are interesting. All it takes is one player for those guys to return value. So
thanks, Reed.
Not too bad. I appreciate that. Was good, Jeff. And great last name with Benny. I got Benny there. But my guy is Giorgio Tavecchio. He's a guy that's slotting in for Matt Bryant, who has a hamstring injury. And Tavecchio was seen in Atlanta's training camp, so he has some familiarity with these guys. 75% field goal percentage with the Raiders last year. This guy slots into it should be a high-scoring game. We've seen kickers in these high implied game totals really reap the benefits, and the Giants give up the second most fantasy points to opposing kickers. So if you want to save some value, Tavecchio could give you low ownership, and he's only about $2,500, so he'd be my value play.
Kicker stats from Reed. That is work.
Original.
Right
Adam, any contrarian strategies you like for this matchup?
Yeah, I got 2 of them. I like the double tight end stack, and to Reed's point, I like the double kicker stack. Why not? let's go. 2 kickers, why not? Because look at that. As Reese said, we're going to have a lot of points supposedly in this game tonight, so that's plenty of opportunities. And we know how Eli and the Giants' offense stalls in the red zone. So what does that mean? The kicker is going to get some opportunities there, so I would go there. I also like Austin Hooper in this matchup. His price is fairly good, as well as Evan Ingram. So if you're going to go double kicker, double tight end, then you could go get Barkley, Ito Smith. You could round out your team with some other good skill position players on the Falcons and Giants as well.
All right, 45 seconds, really quick read.
Falcons defense, again, not that good, but they can score against Eli.
Jeff, be quick with us.
Jeff.
Roster Tevin Coleman in all 6 spots. You'll be fine. I don't have any contrarian picks.
He's going to do well.
In all.
All right, we got to go because Reed and I have a softball game at 8 o'clock here. We got to go.
Okay, yeah. Appreciate the time, guys. As always, this is the
Thanks,
Sweat.
Jeff coming to cheer you on, I hope.
No,
have a good one,
they
guys.
wish.
See you
I'm
on
Never
Jessie.
miss a game.
He's
Never miss a game.
Emerson. I guess we're out of here. He's already leaving. This has been the Sweat. We'll be back tomorrow at 6 p.m.
Have a good one, guys.